Hi, my name is Whitney Adams, and this is my video presentation and reflection. Our textbook states that to standardize the format is to design materials and space that you are looking in the same consistent place every time for the data that you need. I learned that organization is key. If I don't ask them to place their notes or answers in a specific place, I'll be looking all over their pages to find the answers that they've written down. I've also learned that this is a time saver. In searching for their answers, I'll be wasting valuable class time that I could have been spent correcting, applauding, or checking additional work. Our textbook mentions Dave Haviska and his use of a packet. And when reviewing a response from a student, he's able to quickly view the same area of the packet instead of flipping pages and searching for the answer. His organization saves time, not only for himself, but also allows his students time to continue working instead of waiting on him. I also learned that I will be able to gauge understanding of a concept very quickly. In organizing my packet or where the students will write their answers, I'll be able to get a good understanding of how well they are comprehending the lesson and what mistakes they're making. In the clip that had Megan Ruler, she posed the question about disposition to her class. After reviewing several answers while scanning the papers rather quickly, she guides them to the answer that she's searching for. Several questions later, she reteaches the definition of the word after some continue to struggle with the application of the word. So how did this information impact my thinking? It impacted my thinking in a few different areas. Number one is I'll be able to assess while learning is actually occurring. Before this lesson, I hadn't considered how valuable this could be, to be able to check in with a good number of my students while discussing and building on past lessons. It'd be a waste of my time and my students' time to teach an entire lesson, assign independent work, and not discover, possibly until the next day, that the majority of the class was missing certain steps. Taking a few minutes during the lesson to gauge comprehension and their application as the students complete a problem or a question could save time instead of having future headaches. It's also important to have proper structure. Now, going back to the organizational feature of this tool, it's critical to be deliberate in the thinking and planning of your class packets or your worksheets. Without this structure, the instructor would be left combing pages to find answers. Along with the importance of general structure, forming these packets in the order of the lesson that will be taught is another key. Time would be wasted by everyone flipping back and forth between pages, and it can also be frustrating for students if they're unable to find the page that we're currently working on because of all the trouble within the document. If this teaching strategy is to be streamlined, as our textbook suggests that it should be simple for everyone involved. Now, I felt like I could take several things from this lesson, and I'll start with streamlining information. And streamlining information is important because it will make our observations more efficient, according to our textbook. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, to streamline means to put in order or to make simpler or more efficient. Now, in many sports these days, they're teaching that the simplest movements are often the most repeatable and therefore the way to have the highest level of success at that particular skill. The same can be said for setting up our lessons for our students. If we can provide a consistent form or a consistent worksheet, it can provide a level of comfortability and stability for both parties. Standardizing the format can also help us save time in several different ways. As I mentioned earlier, it can help in our assessment and gauging understanding immediately instead of finding out a possible lack of understanding at a later time. The organization of the packet can also help to save time in that the instructor is not flipping through the pages or searching through lines of text for a specific phrase. In turn, our students will not have to wait while we are looking for these answers. And last, this tool can also help keep the class on task and help to provide meaningful discussion. Because the teacher is in a constant state of circulation and assessment, he or she is able to keep students focused on the lesson at hand. Now, in my personal reflection of this teaching tool, I felt as though this was something that I would be very comfortable doing on a day-to-day basis. I feel that one of my personal weaknesses is opening up to students on that very first day and even the few days that follow, but this will permit a momentary connection that can be built on throughout the year. Quickly assessing in a matter of seconds will not only allow me to check in with each student to evaluate understanding, but it will allow the student a moment of access that they may not have had otherwise. Now, in my professional reflection, I feel that this method will be met with a positive reaction from my students. Allowing a very brief one-on-one session where there may or may not even be any back and forth, it will allow them to feel confident in their learning after a word of confirmation from me, or I can provide additional clarification if I need to. Being able to check in and gauge understanding will allow additional time for discussion, which is important because this is when the learning actually takes place. An amount of give and take is essential in order for students to really be able to ask questions and get into the depths of what we're studying. Affirmative checking occurs when we insert specific points into our lesson when students must get confirmation that their work is correct, productive, or sufficiently rigorous before moving on to the next stage according to our textbook. And through this, I learned that we must ask a specific question or ask them to solve a specific problem. In the clip that we watched, all the students answered the same question, and in fact, one of the students made up a problem, I guess, on their own, and Miss Lewis asked that the student go back and answer the question that she had written on the board. The students also must receive confirmation before moving on, and this is significant because it allows the instructor to check for the correct answer and the manner of solving the problem. There were several times that Miss Lewis asked a student to return to the carpet and double-check their answer, and for those that answered correctly, she gave them confirmation, which told them that they could move on to their independent work. Miss Lewis also gave feedback in the same manner, whether the answer was correct or not. In doing this, she provided a supportive response regardless of the answer. In this lesson about affirmative checking, it impacted my thinking because it helped me understand that knowledge of the skill can be shown in one problem or question. Instead of wasting valuable class time solving question after question as a group, it's important that students have their own time to practice and grow at their own pace. Checking in with each student before moving on is impactful because it serves as a reminder to us that certain students will need additional help. In addition, it allows a one-on-one situation that will end in a positive reinforcement from the instructor, whether it's confirming the answer with our student or reminding them to double-check their process. We'll have an important moment with our kids. So because of this lesson on affirmative checking, I'll take away the fact that a check-in is important for all students. As I stated in my last slide, this check-in is important for many reasons, and checking the answer for understanding and their overall process are all very necessary to this process. Another takeaway from affirmative checking is that confirmation doesn't have to be given from the instructor. It can be given from an answer key or from another student. Potentially, using the second two options can free yourself for additional questions or to allow you a moment to prepare for the next portion of the day while the students are working independently. In my personal reflection of affirmative checking, I found that I really liked that assessment can be done quickly. Again, having a few positive seconds with a student is very important. I also really liked that additions can be made to the check-in process that can make it enjoyable for everyone in the classroom. Now, I've been present in a classroom where students, the teachers allowed them to be punctuation police. So they were working on writing, and she rotated the students that she chose to be the punctuation police, but one would work on periods. One would be the policeman or policewoman for commas. And the students, whenever they finished their paragraph or maybe a couple of sentences, they would take it to each punctuation police person, and they would have to get the check from that student that the periods were where they were supposed to be, the commas were where they were supposed to be, and then they could go on and continue. And then after they wrote 2 or 3 groups and having to go back and forth to the police people, they could then turn it in, and then it could be reviewed by the instructor. So in that way, you're freeing up yourself, and you're allowing both the students that are the police people to grow because they're practicing their the lessons that are there, and then it's also allowing those that may be struggling a little bit practice with kind of conferring with their fellow students. In my professional reflection of this, I found that I would be able to focus on the quality of response. In doing this, we could maintain a high level of learning. I should also be able to maintain continuity with my feedback in a positive and reinforcing tone, so I can redirect the incorrect answers or pass along my affirmative check and allow the student to move on to the next task. So our textbook states that the no opt-out strategy can help ensure that all students, especially those that may be a little bit more reluctant, can take responsibility for learning. It also mentions that instructors are able to turn "I don't know" into success by ensuring that students who won't try or can't answer, they can practice getting it right. One of the keys that I took away from this lesson are that you should establish expectations early on. This is a big deal because in doing so, you're showing your students where your standards are at and where you expect the students to be. It will also demonstrate to your students that they will not be able to get by with just the bare minimum during discussion. I also like the fact that it allows students to help each other out. So if there is a student that's struggling to come up with an answer, we can open up the question to the rest of the class to give him or her some sort of hint. The no opt-out lesson impacted my thinking because I realized the importance of allowing students small successes throughout the lessons or throughout the day. Our textbook states that many students come to school expecting to fail because they haven't normalized failure. And it's important to me that my students feel accomplished within the walls of my class, and they won't feel that way if I let them get away with "I don't know" and shrink further into themselves without feeling public moments of success, even if they are prompted. I also really like that this lesson gives the class the feeling that they are all in it together. They can feel camaraderie within the class when they help each other out, and I love the idea of teamwork when it comes to learning. My takeaways on the no opt-out lesson include not supporting a lack of effort. As stated earlier, setting the standard early is a big deal. There will be resistance from some, as our text states, but it's important that we don't give in and we give small pushes in the right direction. I also took away that if there is some resistance, we can give cues, hints, or ask additional questions to help put the students on the right track. David Hibiscus asked his classroom to give a struggling student a hint to the answer that he was searching for. After providing the hint, he commended the student giving the hint by allowing the class to give 2 snaps for him. He then returned to the original student, and she was able to give the correct answer. I liked his application of this because it demonstrated how we can help our students while keeping the rest of the class engaged. In my personal reflection of the no opt-out lesson, I really like that this could be applied to any subject or grade level, whether it be a core subject or even volleyball practice. Asking high-level questions will maintain a high-performance classroom. I also really liked the idea that I could demonstrate that I'm going to push them because I care about them. There will always be those kids that don't have much support when they leave our classes, and showing these kids that I care about them, even in this small way, is important to me. In my professional reflection, I can look forward to the fact that through the no opt-out strategy, I can maintain positive relationships with my students. In showing them that I care and having a classroom that works together, it can provide a positive learning environment for my students. And here are my references, just the textbook that we work with in our classroom, and then I quoted the Merriam-Webster dictionary that I used.